But where are the people? So how does it work? Well, it's very simple. With our app called Showroom for Buyer, unit selection can all be done online. All you have to do is go into the project that you like, view the site plan. Once you found your unit, click on the unit and just click on the reserve button. From there, it's all very easy. Just fill in your details, key in any additional purchases, and just like that, that unit is now yours.
Welcome to the live session, the paneling session brought to you by IGN, and today we have the starting project for 𝗦𝗛𝗢𝗏𝗡𝗏.
We are at the Sunway Velocity 2 sales gallery right now, and in light of the CMCO, there's a unit selection ongoing right now, but as you can see in the physical showroom here, there are not much people here because they are not doing it physically here, but they are doing it in our showroom for buyer in MHub.
In the first half an hour, we've already gotten over 100 bookings. But where are the people? So how does it work? Well, it's very simple. With our app called Showroom for Buyer, unit selection can all be done online. All you have to do is go into the project that you like, view the site plan. Once you found your unit, click on the unit and just click on the reserve button. From there, it's all very easy. Just fill in your details, key in any additional purchases, and just like that, that unit is now yours.
What?
When we were going through the MCO, it was definitely uncertainty that came into mind.
That 3 months break is actually affecting us in terms of sales and everything.
Physical movement are restricted, so the management came up with this online balloting.
Our business concern then was actually to think of how to think out of the box. As we know for a fact that with COVID that hit all of us, it was something that was unprecedented. We had to think how to do business differently. I believe just like any other company, we had to accelerate digitalization.
MHub has always been a believer in digitalization. What we've always pushed for is coming to a reality.
After they use MHub, basically they're able to solve some process which they stuck. They can always make a booking or always make a payment like immediately online.
Before this, we do face-to-face balloting. Normally, it would involve a lot of crowds because in Bandar Kira, when we launch 𝗬𝗢𝗢𝗡𝗢𝗡, the amount of people who comes is actually quite overwhelming.
With the trend now, everything is going online. The outreach is even more better. People can watch through their mobile phone, while at home, while at work.
Our objective is actually a close gap with app and to build the ecosystem with all those stakeholders.
I think the key thing for MHub and what we call Team Hub is that we listen. We take time to hear the pain points of the property industry and property developers, the various stakeholders. We hear the problems and we try to solve them with technology.
And we hope that with MHub with us, and of course we'll be able to work together, make sure that we had the best of everything, timely, speedy, and also immediate response. When we were going through the MCO, it was definitely uncertainty that came into mind.
That 3 months break is actually affecting us in terms of sales and everything.
Physical movement are restricted, so the management came up with this online balloting.
MHub has always been a believer in digitalization. What we've always pushed for is coming to a reality.
After they use MHub, basically they're able to solve some process which they stuck. They can always make a booking or always make a payment like immediately online.
Our objective is actually a close gap with app and to build the ecosystem with all those stakeholders. When MHub has all this, we actually help them to communicate with each other better.
I think the key thing for MHub and what we call Team Hub is that we listen. We take time to hear the pain points of the property industry and property developers, the various stakeholders. We hear the problems and we try to solve them with technology. New normal requires new standards. Glad to say that we are the market leader with 70 over developers and counters.
Together, MHub connects buyers, real estate agents, property developers, bankers, lawyers, and property managers, closing gaps with apps. This is Maya, and she's looking to buy a new home. With Showroom for Buyers, Maya can visit show galleries virtually and see real-time project details. Real estate agents easily update prospect status on MHub Lead. Maya selects her unit and makes payments real-time. Using Showroom, property developers get an omni-channel view to manage projects, sales teams, bookings, and view reports. Within minutes, Maya can run a credit check and find out her loan eligibility, as well as apply from lenders based on her credit score. Bankers easily update loan statuses on MHub Banker. Using any touchscreen device, buyers can then sign on sales agreements. Lawyers are notified of purchase cases and update them on MHub Lawyer. With the Marvis app, Maya can submit defect cases for her unit. Property developers can then proceed to manage the VP process as well as property management using Pegasus Work. Now that's end-to-end property transactions. Simplified. Market, manage, and measure better with MHub, the people-powered property platform. Why we're
Hi everyone, welcome to Modern Solutions. It's good to see all of you joining us this morning. This is our 12th Modern Solutions webinar. We've been doing this since April of 2020, and we decided to launch this actually as an effort to think about how do we engage and how do we solve our current predicament that we are in, not just Malaysia, but the entire world with COVID-19, and what we can do with digitalization to help interact and transact in a safer way. So my name is Jason Ding. I'm the co-founder and CMO of MHub. And today we're going to talk about, when we first started with Modern Solutions, it was the starting of the pandemic, but now we are talking to a point of this phase, we're talking about it being an endemic, right? How COVID is now to be looked at like something that we need to live with, not something that we just overcome immediately, but we need to kind of find a way to live with COVID in the new normal. Just to set some context before I introduce our panel of esteemed speakers, is that as of 1st of September, we can say Malaysia that 65.1% of adult population have received 2 doses of COVID-19 vaccine, right? And 85.1%, which is equivalent to about 19 million individuals, have already received their first dose at least, right? So it's something that is encouraging. But at the same time, we want to talk about how COVID-19 and these recovery plans affect the property industry, and what are the best ways to move forward. Because I think many people are also wondering, okay, now the economy is reopening. Should I open? Should I consider just going all out? If those of you who are going out in public spaces, you will also see that more and more people are more comfortable to go out and they are just dealing with the virus in a different way. So today in our conversation, I'm happy to introduce 3 speakers, experts in their own field, to talk about how we should proceed moving forward. And before I introduce them, we will also give you a bit of a context on how we'll spend our next 60 minutes and 1 hour. Is that we will have each speaker share for about 10 minutes each, right? And then at the end, because this is a live session, we will accept some questions in the Q&A. So if you're familiar with Zoom, you already know by now, there's a Q&A button at the bottom. Just click on the Q&A button anytime at all. And at the end, we will address your questions as well. All right. So without further ado, let me introduce our speakers. So firstly is Dr. Swee Kheng. He is an experience in the public, private and non-profit sectors and think tank sectors. Currently, he specializes in health systems and policies and global health, holding fellowships at Chatham House, the United Nations Universities, and ISIS Malaysia. Good morning, Dr. Khor.
Hello, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you on board. Next, we have Dr. Carmelo Ferlito. He's the CEO of the Center of Market Education, or CME. He's also a senior fellow at the Institute for Democracy and Economic Affairs Ideas, research advisors for Provalindo, Nusa, Jakarta, senior fellow at the Property Rights Alliance, Washington, D.C., and adjunct professor at the School of Liberal Arts and Sciences of Taylor's University. Glad you could join us this morning, Dr. Carmelo.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right. And finally, on our list of illustrious speakers is my very own partner, 𝗥𝗢𝗢𝗡𝗢𝗡. 𝗥𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗡 is the co-founder and CEO of MHub, Malaysia's leading end-to-end property transaction platform, capturing 28.3% of the nation's total primary residential transactions in the year 2020. Current accumulated bookings are 170,000 from 1,100 projects with a total value of $26 billion. And happy and proud to say that 10 out of the top 15 real estate developers in Malaysia are currently using MHub. So welcome, 𝗥𝗢𝗢𝗡𝗢𝗡.
All right, thank you. I would like to welcome everybody, and thanks, Dr. Khor and Dr. Carmelo for being our guest panel today. I hope you guys will enjoy our sharing today. Thanks.
Yeah. So great. So let's dive right into it. Yes, the economy is reopening. Yes, people are starting to go out more. If you see the roads, some of you may be experiencing the same old jams that we used to face pre-COVID, right? That is the people are going out, and this is something that businesses need to consider, because whatever the risk involved will also impact their businesses in the long run. Okay, we've seen some in the developer space. We've seen some developers who are more progressive than others, who are more brave than others, because the last thing you want to do is actually just wait and see. We still need to continue with business continuity and business recovery, and there's a need to find that balance. So firstly, let's hear from Dr. Khor. What are your observations about the Malaysian government's response over the last 18 months? And curious to hear from you, how does Malaysia stack compared to the efforts of other countries?
Jason, thank you. The second question is a challenging one about how does Malaysia rank, right? So we'll try to get there at some point. Thanks for having me. I'll begin there. I'll also start talking about the last 18 months in Malaysia. What I will not talk about is stuff that everybody already knows. So we've got about 40 participants here today. Basically, all of you are mini public health experts. So in my career, I specialize in medicine, then public health, now public policy, and health systems, health policies, and global health. I think all of us in Malaysia have become public health experts. We know what is contact tracing, we know how to isolate, we know the reasons, the differences between a rapid test and a PCR test, and we know about surge capacity, ICU care, etc., etc. We're all very familiar with that. So all the standard stuff I will not repeat because you're all very familiar with all that. Instead, I would like to offer a few reflections over the last 18 months in Malaysia. Firstly, is that health is bigger than healthcare. Healthcare is just doctors, nurses, surgeries, clinics, hospitals, medicines, and vaccines. That's healthcare. We're caring for your health. But health is so broad that it must include what I'm calling the non-scientific determinants of health. When you go to a hospital, it's all science, all evidence, clinical trials, research, and so on and so forth. But the non-scientific determinants of health are equally important, perhaps more important. Here are some practical examples. Political determinants of health, meaning what rights do migrants have, refugees have, people in the rural areas have. There are the social determinants of health, conditions in which you are born in, live in, and die in. For example, relevant to the property sector or the real estate sector or the construction sector, how do you build infrastructure or residential buildings or commercial buildings that are safe, that are health promoting, and there will be pandemic resilient for any future pandemic, because COVID is pretty bad, but there could be a pandemic X that could be 10 times as bad as COVID. And somewhere out there in the environment, there will be some virus that has just waiting to make the transition across the species barrier from whatever animal to human beings and giving us 10 times as bad. So the social determinants of health are the conditions relevant to you, the way you design buildings, build buildings, manage buildings, and maintain buildings, for example, residential or commercial, are what we call social determinants of health. And finally, we can call them the commercial determinants of health, meaning what is the role of the private sector, private hospitals, private clinics, private GPs, private vaccine producers, etc., in delivering healthcare solutions for everyone. That's my first big reflection, that we're all waking up to the fact that health is more than just healthcare. Doctors, hospitals, nurses, vaccines, all very important, but we must look at the political, social, and the commercial or economic determinants of health as well. That's one big reflection on the last 18 months. The second reflection on the last 18 months, Jason and my friends, is that Malaysia's government, and indeed many other governments, but let's talk about Malaysia, is very focused on single solutions in the last 18 months. In 2020, it was focused on SOPs, lockdowns, movement restrictions, MCOs, whatever you call it. I'm confused. There's so many descriptions, right? So the idea being that we thought that lockdowns alone would be the single determining factor for how you can bring the cases and deaths down. That strategy, the single strategy of lockdowns, whatever you call the lockdowns, it doesn't matter to me, and frankly, I don't care anymore what they call the lockdowns, but the principle is that lockdowns is a single strategy. Now, in 2021, we think that vaccinations are the single strategy, magic overnight bullet solution, magic silver bullet solutions. Vaccinate everyone, get to herd immunity, we can go back to normal. So from lockdowns to vaccinations, who knows what the third single strategy might be? This is wrong. This is wrong because pandemics are very complex. And in that complexity, we can never have a single magic overnight silver bullet solution. What I mean to say is that we need the real estate, property, construction sector to involve themselves to become part of the solution as well. We need solutions from the private sector, from NGOs, civil societies, etc., as part of a basket of solutions. So my second observation is that a reliance on single solutions, whatever they are, and then trying to sell the single solution to the public as a magic solution is a wrong policy and a wrong strategy. That's my second observation. My third and final observation about Malaysia's 18 months, right, before we start talking about how Malaysia ranks, is that our responses in Malaysia have been limited in space, meaning we have been thinking about Malaysia as in a country isolated from the rest of the world. We've got border controls. We make it difficult for people to come in, although they've got a lot of loopholes and then the ways for you to drive even a truck through those loopholes. But leaving that aside, at some point, Malaysia will have to consider how we can regionalize and internationalize our responses, meaning we're not learning enough best practices from other countries. There's still a slight, I would even say, policy arrogance to believe that we have alone all the solutions. And it's a bit of a hero complex in Malaysia that I alone have all the solutions by some of the policymakers and leaders. So we have to look abroad for solutions from countries that have done well. For example, Singapore treated their migrants very well. New Zealand have got a very decisive responses, a set of responses. Vietnam has done well with public health and community empowerment for public health. These are 3 examples of countries that we can learn from, not too far away from where we are. The second reason, not reason, but way that we can collaborate regionally and internationally is that at some point, Malaysia has to restart our economy, travel corridors, tourism is important, facilitation of trade is important, which is why I'm working with several colleagues in the ASEAN Secretariat to restart a travel corridor. But to restart a travel corridor will also mean that we need to combine our public health efforts. So some information for everyone would be, the US government has committed to already has launched, not committed, they put the money, they've launched last week, a US CDC based in Hanoi for Southeast Asia. Japan is also putting about 10 to 15 million US dollars, and so is the South Korean government, Chinese government, and the European Union, committing large sums of money to regionalize the efforts over here. And one idea, a crazy idea that some colleagues and I are working on is pooled vaccine procurement, meaning instead of Malaysia going to buy vaccines for round 2, not round 1, because COVID will be endemic, we need round 2 or round 3 vaccinations, that we're trying to purchase vaccines for Southeast Asia. So imagine 650 million Southeast Asians go to the Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson negotiating table. They would take us much more seriously than if only 32 million Malaysians go. So 650 million people gives us a lot more purchasing power. These are examples of what we can do to regionalize. Finally, to a reason to regionalize is that when we look at a national level response only, we're not looking at ways to share capacity, share information, even share programming and best practices. So all that is required for us to rejoin the international community, especially as COVID becomes endemic. Jason, those are my thoughts about how Malaysia has fared in the last 18 months. As for a ranking for how Malaysia has fared, let me not offer any subjective opinions. We'll refer to the number of cases per capita, number of deaths per capita, and we look at whether or not we're world leading. Our vaccination program is doing quite well, so we're very pleased for that. But it will take some time before vaccinations actually say produce its entire desired output. What I mean to say is, you vaccinate even up to 70% of the population. We're not there yet, but it's 70% of the entire population, all residents 0 to 99 years old, including non-citizens, and that's the number. Not we vaccinated, for example, 40 or 60 or whatever percentage it is of adults who are Malaysians in Malaysia. So that's only a very small subset of the Malaysian population. The point I'm making is vaccinations doing well, but in other metrics, Malaysia is not doing well. And in terms of our health resilience and so on, so I think there's a lot left to be desired. Jason, let me end my comments over here. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khor. Thank you for weighing in on that and giving a broad picture of things. And also want to especially thank you for proactively working into some policies and best practices, pushing for it into change and speaking to different stakeholders and different people in policy making. It's true what you're saying about how we are faring against, I mean, in terms of our efforts, because the other thing that we are also, we can't help being affected by is also the political situation, and which we will not talk about today. But I think all we want to say is we want to be optimistic, right, with the next move and the next with this 𝗘𝗢𝗢𝗡𝗢𝗡 government. Moving forward. And thank you again, Dr. Khor, for weighing in. That we will hear more from you later on when we talk with the Q&A. We talk more about Q&A. So next up, we want to hear from Dr. Carmelo Ferlito. All right. So Dr. Carmelo, yes, you on Awani, you have talked about how we should adopt new strategies and focus on lives and livelihood, pushing for a balanced and more holistic approach. Maybe you could talk more into that and what you mean by that, Dr. Carmelo.
Thank you, Jason. And I would like also to thank Dr. Khor for his presentation. I agree on a lot of points, in particular on the mistake of the single strategy that has been adopted so far. I would say with even religious zealous So there has been a religious faith in lockdown, and now there is a religious faith in vaccination. And this kind of a religious approach fails to acknowledge the complexity of the phenomenon that we have under observation. And therefore, we need a complex answer. So let me share my screen. I have a few slides I'd like to share with our guests. Okay. And I will focus mainly on 3 policy mistakes that have been adopted so far and that we need to learn from if we want to have a safe reopening of all the economic sectors in the future. Let me start with this slogan, if you want, with this quotation that I keep on quoting in papers and articles. Thomas Sowell, a very famous economist, is used to say there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. So the one of the mistakes that have been done so far is that whenever we implement a policy, we don't really see how much does it cost in terms of a sound trade-off analysis. So at the light of these, which are, according to me, the 3 big mistakes that have been made so far. First of all, the distinction between essential and non-essential businesses. This is a very, very dangerous distinction for 2 reasons. First, there is a sort of a moral concern. So each business is essential to at least one person to bring food to the table. I can say that it's not essential for me to cut my hair, but for my barber is very much essential to cut hair to feed his family. This perspective has not been taken into consideration, and therefore the government has basically decided for whom it is essential to eat and for whom it is not essential to eat. Do we want to allow governments to decide who is entitled to earn an income and who is not entitled to earn an income every time there is an emergency? By allowing this, we are opening a very, very dangerous chapter in the way in which we do policy making that open the ways to tyranny, potentially. And then there is a more technical concern that is taking into account the complexity of the economy. I give you a very simple example I have in mind because I work a lot with chicken farms. So poultry farms. In poultry farms, there are equipment that need Siemens motors. Motors probably are not considered essential service. So what do? We ask Siemens to produce only those motors that are going to chicken farms, but not the motors that go to other businesses. So to break down the economy into essentials and non-essential businesses, even from a technical perspective, is basically impossible because everything is interrelated. So we waste a lot of time and energies in trying to address something that is not addressable. Mistake number 2 that is in line with what Dr. Khor just said is that we have adopted generalized measures instead of targeted measures. First of all, generalized lockdowns. We have enough evidences now to say that lockdowns do not stop the spread of virus, and at best, they can slow down the run. But from a trade-off perspective, they are also extremely costly. So they costed, we know, 2.5 billion ringgit per day, while treating all the COVID patients from the beginning of the pandemic until June 2021 costed 8 billion ringgit. So if we simply invested more money in treating better people and in having additional beds or ICUs, we could save really a lot of money and having probably better results. Second point is that lockdowns forced the government to adopt generalized fiscal policies. So we had ample subsidies but then they were ample, they were big in the general amount, but the single amount reaching the individuals was very small. By avoiding lockdowns, we could have adopted targeted and more useful actions, such as strengthening the healthcare system with appropriate investments. Then mistake number 3, again in line with what Dr. Khor said, is that we are betting all our future on the power of vaccination. And vaccination, I don't know, I mean, so far has yet to show the results that we are all hoping for. So these are some statistics as for the 1st of May, when only 1.7% of the total population was fully vaccinated. We had a cumulative number of deaths of 46 per million people and a cumulative mortality rate of 0.37%. Now, as per 31st of August, the total population that has been fully vaccinated is almost 46%. The total deaths per million are 508, and the cumulative mortality rate is 0.95%. Don't take me wrong, I don't want to argue here that vaccines are killing people. I did this exercise also for European countries where the vaccination was started when the deaths were already declining, probably because of the summer, and basically the downtrend continued. Here, vaccination started when our mortality was already on an upward trend, and simply the vaccination so far hasn't stopped that, that upward trend. So at best, I would say that so far vaccines have been neutral. When there was a downtrend, a downward trend, that trend persisted, and the same happened here. Here you can see a couple of graphs. So in the blue, you can see the cumulative death rate, and in red, the percentage of the population that has been fully vaccinated. So far, the cumulative death rate is not slowing down at all. The same goes for the cumulative deaths per million people. You can see there is a very strong parallelism with the percentage of people that are fully vaccinated. So to bet the future of our country on vaccination, I think would be too risky. And I'm a strong advisor of reopening the economy. I want the economy to go back to be physical. So don't take me wrong, I don't want to see any lockdown, but I think that we need to have in place a much more complex strategy that involves, as Dr. Khor said, also the role of businesses, an active role of businesses, individual responsibility, and the civil society. So what do we need to do, according to me, to get things done properly, and in a different way? The first pillar needs to be a commitment to a no-lockdown strategy. The economy, in order to restart and restart properly, needs certainty. So far, instead, we had very kick-up policies that have made everybody frustrated and operating into uncertainty. We had announcements coming out before the SOPs, and SOPs in partial contrast with announcements, and that has made a lot of confusion. So we need a strategy that is clear for the long term. We need to open a debate on domestic and international movements. I believe that there will not be a real economic recovery as far as people are not allowed to move with adequate SOPs in safety, but a commitment toward a reopening strategy. And a no-lockdown strategy means also that we can rely on economic growth to have more resources available to be properly channeled into the healthcare system. So it means that we can spend less. We can do it with less fiscal policy. We just need to spend better. So far, I believe in the past 18 months, we have spent too much in the wrong direction and too little in the right direction. I think that the number of ICU beds that we have now available is more or less the same that we had available in March 2020. And these tell us how wrong our fiscal strategy has been. What can instead the civil society and businesses what they can do to be an active part in this strategy? I think that, and this goes also for the property sector, for the sales galleries, and it's something that I adopted also. I don't preach only, I also adopted this strategy in my own office. Business should commit to weekly rapid tests. This is the best way, and I've seen also in my office how the atmosphere changed when the colleagues had the certainty that the people next to them were testing negative. The people work more relaxed, they feel more confident to talk to each other, to smile to each other, because they feel secure. And of course, by doing it on a weekly basis, you have a certainty or a reasonable certainty to catch the virus when it is still at an early stage, and therefore to address it medically when it's still addressable. I often mention that we need mass, frequent, and affordable testing, and I believe more actually in rapid tests like the saliva, which is much less invasive than the swab. You cannot think to get a swab in your nostrils every week. Or in your throat every week. But in order to achieve this, I believe that ceiling price is the wrong strategy, because ceiling price can create supply side shocks. If there is no economic incentive to produce the tests, then tests will not be available. And eventually we will create the incentive for a black market. This is Econ 101. Which is the most ignored at policy level often. The government could eventually think at targeted actions to subsidize the price for businesses and individuals that are in the need. In this way, you help the poor and you don't eliminate the incentive at the business level. But for the generality of business, I think that rather than having subsidies or ceiling, make the amount spent in test tax deducible is the best way to convince businesses to adopt this strategy. So the producer and the sellers have their economic incentive, and the businesses know that that money are going to come back in a different way. There are more things that could be said from a policy perspective. I don't have time to dig into that here. I have author or co-author a couple of papers on this, on policy, both from the economic perspective and the more healthcare perspective. These papers can be downloaded for free from this link. I will make this presentation available later on to Jason. And there are a few videos that can also be watched with our proposals. So on this, I will close and I will remain available for questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carmelo. Thank you for weighing in on these things and thinking through it holistically. If those of you are wondering and curious about Dr. Carmelo's work and opinions, as well as Dr. Khor, they speak very frequently with Astro Awani and BFM and different platforms. So just search them on Google and you'll find many of the work. But today we will try to focus a bit more on the property sector. And also because a lot of the audience today will be from the property industry, and there are many things that's out of our control, but there are some things that are in your control in regards to your sales gallery and how you want your business to continue, as in how you implement SOPs that is helps with your sustainability and moving forward, right? So for that, we will invite 𝗥𝗘𝗢𝗡𝗢𝗡, CEO of MHub, my partner, who will come and share on some thoughts and some suggestions on how to reopen your sales gallery. And without further ado, 𝗥, take it away.
Right, thank you, Jason. Yeah, so Yeah, I'm very happy to be part of this today discussion. I'm not a specialist in healthcare nor public health, but I'm very happy to be, together sharing these thoughts of ours from the technology point of view, right? Together with Dr. Carmelo and Dr. Khor, and really, I learned so much from both of you today, right? So I hope the audience as well. We have broadcast this to Facebook Live, so I think we have about more than 100 audience today. So I hope you spend the next 1 hour or next half an hour to at least pick up one or two points and to help you to run your sales gallery or your office in a very safe environment. So today I'm going to share a bit more on the technical point of view. This is purely our recommended the flow. So feel free to also just treat it as a brainstorming. Feel free to share your thoughts in the chat as well, right? So I think let me just. There you go. So I think I wouldn't touch much more on the market sentiment, but I think that basically in general we're talking about these three items. So we in technology we always are very concerned or very how should I say, on top of this consumer behavior or change of consumer behavior. As a MHub, we are a prop tech company, so we always strive to basically be the forefront to digital adoption to help our users to also embark on this journey of transformation as well. So I think this is very important. I would say online, marketplaces, comparison, all this virtual viewing, it will be here to stay. And I'm pretty sure this will be a pent-up demand as well as people are looking for a safer, wider, bigger, more comfortable homes, right? So therefore, there are a lot of also analysts start talking about once economies start to opening up, the property sector should be one of the beneficiary to this uptake, right? Because there's already how should I say a glut or demand or slowdown in the past during the full lockdown and so on and so forth. People are still looking for houses. We do see transactions are still happening, but I believe conversion will become more and more higher in the Q4 or next year onwards as well. But of course, I think many people are looking for more assurance of safety, like what Dr. Carmelo has mentioned, right? So if I open my office, if the colleague sitting next to me, I need to be assured that he's actually negative, right? Then I'm more comfortable sitting in the office. So I think we in MHub also we practice this. We bought quite a number of test kit. So I also we get most of our team members or rather whoever comes to office or even outsiders who coming to office, we do have a small studio to do some shooting. So we actually enforce everyone do a self-test before we start any any daily operation. I think this is the key to live with this pandemic, right? Okay. So next, I probably will touch on a bit more of some of the recommended flow we think from a technology perspective, or we feel this is the best practice, and we would like to share with you. And hopefully you can adopt one or two of these processes into your SOP, right? So in a nutshell, we break into three components or three stages: pre-visit, visit, and post-visit. So pre-visit, obviously your office or your gallery has to be sanitized and has to be, if can, try to be as touchless as possible, non-physical, try to restrict the physical touch. If you have a digital sensor, IoT stuff, try to maybe install more of all these small devices, right? Facial recognition to enter to your premises or whatever, right? So just because regularly open, just even your office door or your toilet, right? I read one article mentioned that in Thailand, one of the outbreak, right, because of everyone uses the same toilet, the same area, the toilet, what's it called, door is the culprit of the spread, right? So because it's not regular sanitized. So if you still need to have a manual way, manual opening of doors, all this, do sanitize regularly, and all this obviously vaccination, full vaccinated or tested staff should only be allowed to be in the gallery or in the office, right? So that is something that we all always need to be aware. And I think this is very important. We have seen quite a number of our client or our user has been adopting this. I think we should also restrict the visitors to the gallery to limited numbers. So we we highly recommend you to adopt an online appointment system or an app, right? So there are many ways you can do it. So in a nutshell, you basically can bring categorize this online appointment into 4 categories or four types of customer or visitors who do an online appointment. So it's either the customer self-register or the customer register on behalf of other people, or customer would like to walk into your gallery, right? They should go for online registration as well. If the slot is up, it's gone, then we should actually get them to come the next day or whatsoever. Try to limit the contact, limit the interaction. And the last one obviously is the sales staff that register on behalf of the customers, right? So these are the few things that on the screen that you can actually see. I think this is very important. If you can actually get them to obviously register name, phone for tracking purposes, and then you limit the number of slots and state because depending on different galleries, you should have a different policy. What sort of maximum numbers you are allowed to enter your premise, right? And then if not, use the app that can generate confirmation via email, so someone can bring the email or the copy during appointment day, right? So and do inform in the email for the pre-testing, right? So yeah, so obviously in the during the visit, I think many have actually done this, but we just like to share and reiterate that the office should be only open for appointment basis, and then full dose, double dose or single dose, because we do have single dose vaccine right now available. Temperature screening, I'm not sure what about the Dr. Carmelo or Dr. Khor on this temperature screening. Is it still necessity? Maybe we can hear your thoughts in the Q&A, right? But yeah, so I think this is one of the policy that government has set, right? So and then face mask, obviously, right? Double layer if you do not have the K95, N95, maintaining distance, and children below 12 is always discouraged to enter the premise, right? So yeah, and this is our recommended flow. We strongly feel that you should start with obviously the what's it called, the visitor showing the QR code to the reception. You should have a dedicated reception counter to be your guest reception area. Allocate your gallery, maybe at the entrance. That will be your reception area, whereby the guard or receptionist should be the first one to confirm the appointment date by using the system that you adopt, right? So then get the visitor to scan QR code and show the full vaccination record, right? And we actually strongly recommend, because we have to live with this pandemic, this virus. So we strongly recommend you to incorporate this SOP, this one step. It's very important, to do a self-test, right? So GNR, your guest, your guard and receptionist should show the steps, or maybe there's a video to show how to do the self-test. There are many different types of self-test kit. Perhaps Dr. Khor and Dr. Carmelo can share what's the difference of all these test kit as well. We in MHub we buy a lot of saliva tests, right? So then we also will show a few steps of how it runs. I personally have done, I think, 3 or 4 times of almost every week I do at home. Even at home, I'm doing a self-test at home as well, right? So I think if the result comes to be negative, then only the visitor should be informed or to be directed to the PIC. Or if it's positive, then I would say we will strongly suggest that to this visitor to be reschedule the appointment, right? So this is something that we really think you should adopt this into your part of your process. Yeah, this is one of the test kit that we actually use. It's pretty simple. You have some of these items, and just spit it into the what's it called, extraction buffer tube, right? You cover it with the filter cap and shake it 10 minutes, you get the result. Yeah, I mean, you have to add the drop into the specimen sample slot, right? So then you get the result in the end, right? So I think this is very important. We have made it to our, it's part of our SOP in MHub office as well. Although majority of our team are still working from home, so but those team members that still required to go to office, this is part of our policy. Yeah. So yeah, there you go. This is the negative result if it's one line, right? So yeah, I think post visit, something that you can consider. So you can perhaps get your sales staff to send what's it called, a quick survey form for rating purposes, or provide feedback, and also try to enhance give a very good customer experience to your visitors, right? And in fact, this is one selling point that you can tell your client that, hey, we are actually your safety or is our utmost priority. So this is because we want you to feel safe to buy our property. We actually do all these practices or processes. Yes, it's quite a hassle. It's an investment, but we keep your team, your staff and family, right, safe, and also keep your visitor or buyer safe, right? So yeah, I think some pointers to take note as well. These are a few checklists. Very simple calendar scheduling app. There are plenty out there. You can opt for as simple as Google Form. Calendly is very famous, right? Or you can go for a web-based app, right? You can subscribe. We do have such solution. You can reach out to us as well, right? And chatbot, right? So we strongly recommend if you want to start doing all this digital appointments. So one angle is also to activate your chatbot as well, right? So chatbot to answer certain Q&A, preset Q&A questions. These are things that you are able to do, right? Meet the salesperson, whatever, that sometimes it's very simple. What time your gallery open, right? So you do not want your salesperson always manually answer those questions. You can use chatbot to do it, right? So explainer video is very important to be inserted onto your website, or rather your calendar scheduling app as well, right? So yeah, I think lastly, obviously you need a test kit, and yesterday just announcement came out, right? There's a ceiling price right now, so you're gonna be I think starting this Sunday, right? So this price will be as cheap as 1990. But I do agree with Dr. Carmelo's point. Yeah, so if this ceiling is there, perhaps it may disrupt the supply because of imbalance of the supply and demand, right? We may not be able to import those more high accuracy or higher quality self-test kit, right? So I don't know. So or rather, yeah. So this may disrupt the supply, or perhaps government can introduce some incentive, right, for the purchase of the self-test kit. Yeah. Right. So and other things to consider. This will be a last thing we want to share. We feel that if you have not what's it called, reopen your gallery, I would strongly recommend you guys to think about phasing out your opening strategy, right? So phase one, you should target your, because now the numbers are still pretty high. So we strongly feel that you should phase it out. Phase one, target perhaps for 1 month or 2 weeks, right? Because everyone do not know what's the best SOP or whatever. Target only ready and serious buyer that you already do what's it called, filtering for the past 2-3 months, right? Get them, perhaps they just want to visit your gallery one last time before they sign the documents, right? So those that still doing research and scouting, perhaps move them to still back to online appointment, what I call online appointment, online virtual walkthrough, right? So then perhaps the salesperson can still show the prospect using a live video on the actual sales gallery, right? Without them try to limit the number of visitors to your gallery as well, right? So phase two, then only you should look into your other marketing campaigns, on-site marketing campaigns that we are talking about, right? So because then everyone is clearer on what are the best practices. How am I safe to even be in the office to serve your client? You do not want your staff, get infected and disrupt the whole operation as well, right? So I think the other two consideration point would be the size is considered. Have to make sure your galleries are pretty much have a different SOP due to the difference in sizes, right? And on-site marketing campaigns as well, right? So the last slide that we would like to share is, so we do have some of this, we strongly recommend you talk to our account managers. If you, I think all this, what they call online events, digital marketing, different tools are still here to stay. We strongly encourage you to talk to our account managers to activate all this CRM, virtual walkthrough, video content, digital marketing, right? DSR calculator to your respective project launch, right? And also your different all this what I call the online booking app. We call it a showroom for buyers, right? So everything can be conducted online. Try to restrict for your launches, the main launches, you should still continue to move online, right? So we have all these tools to help you, right? So I'll end my sharing, right? Stay safe, everybody, and kita jaga hati kita. Thank you.
All right, thank you, 𝗏𝗏. Just to add on and weigh in, the additional point really is how now we are living in a new normal. And new normal requires new standards, actually, really, in terms of engagement. And I think what COVID has caused us to rethink or reframe is our priorities, isn't it? Like our where we stay, is it safe? Is it comfortable? So people are looking into how can they find a place which is like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a place that is safe and they can be just live in a safe environment. So that's something that we are trying to balance and find new standards with. And perhaps I could hear from again the panelists in the next 10 minutes just some thoughts on the property industry specifically. And again, for the attendees today in Zoom, if you have any questions, just click on the Q&A button, and then we will see if we have time to how many questions we can answer. But yes. Firstly, maybe you can go to one question from Victor who asks, some countries like China are opting for a zero COVID strategy. Given the acceleration of the number of COVID variants at the moment, shouldn't this be a more suitable approach in the longer term? Any thoughts from Dr. Khor or Dr. Carmelo?
Carmelo, go ahead first.
Well, I think for what I have followed about China and also listening from people on the ground, it's probably true that China is adopting a zero COVID strategy, but it is doing it in a different way. And the main tool that they are using is indeed testing and isolation. I think that with the latest outbreak that they had when the newspaper started to say that the virus was reappearing in China, they did in a matter of few days something like, I guess, 11 million tests or something like that. Consider that Malaysia does around 100,000, 150,000 tests per day. They did in one location more than 10 million tests in few days. In this way, you are really able to isolate, to detect and isolate the cluster, and therefore you can eventually adopt a zero cases strategy. And consider that in China, life is back to normal. I have friends living there, they travel, they go for holiday, they go to the beach, they go to the mountain, no face masks. It is a pre-pandemic life. They managed to do this with a complex strategy based on mass, but really mass testing, so something that we haven't seen at all, so that in Malaysia, and targeted isolation, and at the same time, very great speed in building temporary hospitals. In Malaysia, we are now not well positioned to implement, I believe, a zero-case strategy, because the virus is so much widespread that for me it is basically impossible. And it's true that we have to adopt a strategy which considers the virus as an endemic, with all the implication that this means. So treat it as part of our life, be careful, and but at the same time take measure for it. So to consider the virus as endemic doesn't mean just 𝗘𝗢𝗢𝗡𝗢𝗡𝗢, virus di sini, go ahead. It means also to be prepared to eventually tackle future peaks in cases again. This means being able to adopt mass testing, be able to build temporary hospitals, invest in ICUs. And I think that on this side, we are very, very weak. We are not doing well at all.
Thank you, Dr. Carmelo. Dr. Khor, you anything to add on to that?
I think Carmelo has given a great explanation about the challenges of a zero COVID strategy, and I also agree that a zero COVID strategy has it's possible, but it's a very high cost. So a great first sentence, Carmelo. There are no decisions, only trade-offs. Because if you try to adopt a zero COVID strategy, can we achieve it? Yes. However, it comes at a cost that I think is unacceptably high. And therefore, the most relevant strategy is for us to learn to live with it, whatever that means. And this requires two decisions. The first decision is, what is the science and the system, the capacity of the healthcare system to absorb an acceptable or tolerable level of cases. And this requires science, epidemiology, also an understanding of our healthcare system and our health system overall. That's one important data point of deciding what is tolerable. The second data point to decide what is a tolerable number of cases is political, meaning the political leaders of Malaysia will have to talk to the citizens and say, this is what we accept. Therefore, we have responsibilities as the government that we will fulfill, and you have responsibilities as citizens that we expect you to fulfill as well. So the point I'm making is that the zero COVID strategy is coming at an unacceptably high cost. We probably have to learn to live with COVID, and in a way to determine what's tolerable will require scientific and health system input as well as a political input.
Great thoughts. I think as per what both of you articulated very well is that it's not so easy to just make a blanket decision, because there's so many considerations and we need to look at it in a very holistic manner, isn't it? Because one approach may work in one country, but then in Malaysia it may not work at all. And that really depends on what we know, okay, on where we are at and what are our infrastructure or culture and what that has in place for us. Can I hear from both of you? I mean, especially speak into the current situation, because a lot of what was shared, great thoughts, but it's very much towards the policies in a national level, right? So now in this panel, I mean, in our attendees today, a lot of them are people in the property sector and developers, and they're thinking, yeah, what's the acceptable trade-off? My business has to carry on, but then if I carry on, then what's going to, if there's a positive case and So there's different things that's going on in their mind. At the same time, they need to continue their business. So based on what you know, okay, and you can just speak into that and based on that, what is your advice really to property developers in Malaysia, and what role, I mean, in their role to play as business and the economy reopens? Maybe you can start with Dr. Carmelo.
I think one of the features of a good business leader is the one to take very sound and balanced decisions for business continuity and to provide a good environment for employees and customers, so all the stakeholders involved. So the first thing I think is be conscious of what you can do and what you cannot do. So again, as also Wee Seong said, probably there is no one solution that fits for all. So again, like at policy level, each business should evaluate its own trade-offs. But I think that continuity is important, and each solution should be aimed at continuity and providing the safest environment as possible, but also being realistic that 100% safety doesn't exist. So let's, because if we would adopt the mindset that we have adopted with COVID for every situation of our life, we would sit at home, stand still every day, because we have the possibility to die in a car accident when we go to work. We have the possibility to fall down from the stair when we are changing a lamp. So life is uncertain. Certainty in life doesn't exist. So let's also be reasonable in the solution. So evaluate your trade-offs. Try to procure a safety environment with realism and being a leader. So it means giving also the strong impression and the strong feeling to your people that you are taking care, that you are in charge and you are in command.
Thank you, Dr. Carmelo. Reminds me of that statement, the same fear of dying keeps us from living, because we're always constantly so afraid, right? So
exactly. So let me add, I'm a cancer patient. So yes, 2 days ago, I celebrated my 5 years survival. I'm among the 10%, 11% survival of the cancer that I experienced. If I had adopted the fear that that has been induced into the population when I was diagnosed with cancer 5 years ago, I would probably not be alive today. So we have to be also positive and strong in mind, knowing that situation can be overcome. So otherwise, and as I told also recently to a friend, I don't want to live like a dead person in order to survive. I prefer to die having a life.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, Dr. Carmelo, and your own personal situation as well. We are happy to hear that you are here with us today and be able to join the panelists as well. All right, Dr. Khor, anything to weigh in regards to how any tools or things that developers and business owners should consider or to think about when making decisions and policies?
A great question, Jason, but also a very broad one, because businesses, multiple sectors, property, real estate, construction, healthcare, agriculture, services, barbers, and so on and so forth. So they all have different considerations. I think secondly, the size of the business matters. Is it micro, small, medium, large, blue chip, international companies as well? So the nature of the business, the size of the business, the complexity, sophistication of the businesses, and so on means different things to different people. I spent about 8 years in the corporate sector working for a Fortune 100 pharma. So I'm reasonably familiar with the private sector. There are 2 or 3 things that I'll say after those caveats that I've just shared with you, right? The first one is businesses have a duty beyond just creating value, making money, making profits, and so on. I think there's a huge debate here about shareholder capitalism or stakeholder capitalism. So I'm more in favor of stakeholder capitalism. You're a business, but you're also a citizen, voter, taxpayer, father, mother, professional, etc. So all these roles that you have are also equally important, and we cannot just look at one role. I'm a business person, and that's the only role that you will play. So I think it's a very broad view. That's one. Number 2, in health pandemics, or rather in pandemics, right? This is an opportunity for you to improve health practices for your employees and also your business, for resilience, for employee health, because you can attract talent, and also for your customers, because customers will go to businesses that are perceived to be safer and have a commitment to health. So it's not just a commitment to high quality products, and then it moved on to commitment to quality products and good prices. Then it moved on to commitment to environment, safety, social and governance metrics like good supply chain ethics and no child labor, things like that. Now you have to demonstrate a commitment to health as well. This will help you improve your profits as well as your business resilience. Thirdly and finally is to say that there is a role for the private sector in the political economy of health. This is less to do with construction, but hey, if there's a construction company over here who's interested in thinking about new ways to build care facilities, aged care facilities, mental health facilities, digital health facilities for mental health infrastructure, or to build hospitals even. And as you go in that particular direction, there is an opportunity to even reasonably profit, and I'm okay with that, philosophically and ideologically speaking, for people to have a reasonable profit from even from the healthcare space. Those are my 3 observations, Jason, that businesses have multiple roles, not just as a business person. Number 2, there are good reasons and incentives for you to think about pandemic proofing or health proofing your operations. And then thirdly, there's an opportunity for you also to profit in reasonable terms from the health system. Over to you, Jason.
Thank you, Dr. Khor. And if I could just ask one last, to carry on your sharing, because we had a conversation previously about how your suggestions and advice to property developers when building new homes, right, or new residential projects, like the key consideration that you mentioned about ventilation and things like that. I don't just speak into that a little bit.
Sure, Jason. I'm so sorry, but I have to go off for this other meeting that's just started. Carmelo, allow me to go first. Ventilation, this is one. Adequate living space, because in a pandemic world, lots of things will be working from home and remote offices right now. So you have to design, I don't know, dual key concept and home offices and so on and so forth. So you need to build that into your thinking process as well. And then thirdly, ventilation is crucial. Yeah, there's a mechanical ventilation, natural ventilation, a whole set of guidelines for that. Number 2, how can you redesign for families that with adequate living space and so on? And there are some international guidelines to say that an average person would need X square meters and Y cubic meters of space for proper living and proper ventilation, for mental health, well-being, and so on and so forth. I don't know what's X and Y, and different standards and associations for that are given X square meters and Y cubic meters of space, and all that is really dependent on the research and the I suppose the economic determinants as well. So maybe I'll just end on these 2 notes: proper ventilation and proper space.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khor, and for your time. And I'll release you now, but thank you again for your time and weighing in, Dr. Khor. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and good luck.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khor. Bye.
Okay, so Dr. Khor mentioned about space, and there was a question. I think I'll address it to Quack about when you're talking about the SOPs on the ground and in the show galleries, right? So what was the recommendation maximum number of packs for a gallery of 3,000 square feet? Asks 𝗘𝗢𝗢𝗡𝗢 in the chat.
All right. Okay. So basically, I think this is back to the government SOP, right? So I think what we have managed to you should need to take note of. Consider the whole area of 3,000 square foot. It's obviously you need to consider that there's partition. It's not how to say empty rooms, right? So there's a workspace and this and that. So we definitely recommend not more than how should I say, consider also the 1 meter distance. So not more than 100 guests should be allowed in that 3,000 square foot. Yeah. So that's some calculation. I'm pretty sure you are able to how should I say, Google that as well. You can use a 50 by 50 feet, the calculation, and then basically there are some formula you can use it, but we recommend not more than 100. Yeah. Okay.
So there's many. Thanks for answering that, correct. And again, we can only make decisions or recommendation based on what we know, and the data is always changing. So this is unfortunately, this is the world that we live in now. There's the standards, and as we battle something and we find a solution, then the virus comes with something else, and then another variant, and so it is challenging. But I think what is happening is that we are at least getting some semblance of a normalcy and some form of living with the virus. Okay, so sorry to take, we are over time already. So we will now have the closing thoughts from both our panelists. Khor has already left. So maybe I'll start with Dr. Carmelo. Any closing thoughts on what was shared today, and anything that comes to mind?
Thank you. Well, I will re-stress this point. I think that both at policy making and at business level, trade-off is key. So let's not be driven by fear or by over-optimism. Let's be rational. Let's do our own sound analysis. And this is the best way to approach the future, and the future that needs to be approached being conscious of the complexity first and at different levels. So we will not go out of this situation by relying only on the government, but it is mainly on us, I guess.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carmelo. And Quek?
I will end my sentence, or perhaps I will echo what Dr. Khor has mentioned. So we will prioritize, which as a business owner myself as well, so we should prioritize stakeholders more rather than shareholders, right? By living with the what's it called, the pandemic. Because if you look after your team members, your team members will look after your business, right? So I think we really need to should eliminate the fear that Dr. Carmelo keep on mentioning, right? So we should, how should I say, I wouldn't say embrace it, but really live it, understand that this pandemic is here to stay, this virus is here to stay. We just gotta find the best possible way, discuss among your, set up a committee, discuss among the committee, find out the best possible measure, SOP, in line with the government policy, if there's any to be announced really soon, I'm pretty sure. So so from time to time, change it, adopt it, and adapt with it. Yeah, thank you.
Great thoughts. Thank you, Quek. I think really the conversation, as we know, is far from over. And the things that we're talking about now is different from the things we talked about 1 year ago, when with COVID, and I think it's healthy to, like what Quek also said, to be agile and to keep being adaptable to the situation, and also bring home points from Dr. Carmelo. Very true. It's not just about risk and all, it's about trade-offs, and it's not, sometimes the decisions are not so easy, but it's good to be informed and make the best decision that is not just like what Dr. Khor said, not just for our stakeholders, but for the shareholders, but stakeholders, everyone that's involved, in a holistic approach. So I hope today's session has been beneficial to all of you attending us, joining us today. And once again, I want to thank Dr. Khor, Dr. Carmelo, and Quek. And that concludes our Modern Solutions for today. If you have any further questions, any thoughts, just feel free to reach out to any of us. We are more than happy to help and assist, and to even when it comes to property digital activation, MHub is here to help in any way that we can. All right, so take care, everyone, and be safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, thank you. Have a good Friday. Thanks, Dr. Carmelo.
Bye-bye. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
You too.